Okay, so this video is going to be how to install Docker on your machine. Now I've done this on both Windows and I've done it on Mac, and it's fairly straightforward, a little easier on a Mac. First we're going to do a search for WebODM to get to the Git page, the GitHub page. It's close to the top there. GitHub OpenDroneMap WebODM. So the difference between OpenDroneMap and WebODM is just a browser-based graphical user interface that rides on top of OpenDroneMap. And so that's what I've been working with. So we're going to scroll down and it starts to give you some instructions. So it says we need Docker, Python, and Git. So Docker runs in a virtual environment. So your PC needs to be enabled for virtualization. And just to show you a quick check, I'm going to hit Control-Alt-Delete. And then my capture is not showing that, but it gives me an opportunity to bring up the task manager. So okay, now you can see that. So I'm going to go to performance, and you can see down here where it says virtualization enabled. So this is an AMD chip that I've got in this computer, and it was not originally enabled. I had to enable that. And what I did is basically I went to the start menu and I held down the shift button when I hit restart, and then that gave me some options of booting into the BIOS, or you can just restart it or turn it off and turn it back on, and you want to hit the delete key during the BIOS setup on this particular computer. Everyone's different, so you might have to do some Googling. And then you go into the BIOS settings and you're going to look for virtualization, or you might have to go into advanced options first, and then you'll look for virtualization or CPU settings or something to that effect until you find the setting to enable virtualization. And that's a Windows thing. I'm pretty sure Mac doesn't require that. So first of all, to run Docker you need VirtualBox, and VirtualBox will run on Windows Pro, I believe, but if you're running Windows Home you need VirtualBox Toolbox, which I have already downloaded. So it's called, Docker Toolbox, that's what it is. And so I got that at downloaddocker.com, Windows stable Docker Toolbox exe. And so I've got that downloaded already. Okay, so welcome to the Docker Toolbox. Okay, we'll leave that, that's fine. Docker Compose for Windows. You want Kitematic and you want Git. So as you recall on the GitHub page where it was listing out the requirements, one of them was Git, and Git is required because we're actually cloning a program that's hosted on GitHub. So where were we? There it is. So yeah, we'll meet that requirement right here. So we'll hit next, create desktop, yes, add Docker, binaries to path, yes, upgrade boot to Docker, yes, install VirtualBox with an yes. I'm not sure if I need that or not. The next thing I want to do before we go any further is get Python installed and properly. So let's click their Python link and we'll go Python 361 right here. Alright, so Python's ready to install. I'm just going to go ahead and click that. Add Python to environment variables. That's what I wanted to make sure we got. And I don't know if that's required, but it seems like it makes a lot of sense. And so it worked on my last install, so that's what I'm doing now. So one thing I wanted to show you is it seems to make a default disk space on the virtual machine of like 20 gigabytes, which it seems to kill me on larger projects doing OpenDroneMap. So on this page here I found a flag for increasing the disk size to 100 gigabytes, which I thought was just fine for your typical, if you're doing some large droning projects, which I do. So I found a way to put that into the start.sh file, and I'll show you how I do that once this gets installed. So now the next thing is to follow their instructions, let's go back here. So what we do is we get those installed, and then we from the Docker Quick Start terminal, which is going to be, this is the Docker Quick Start terminal right here. We're not going to open that yet because I want to change something before we open it, because when you open that it spins up a container, and I want to make a change to the disk size before that happens. So what it says is, from Docker Quick Start terminal, basically you'll just go ahead and do the Git clone. So by the time you do this Git clone, you've already created your new container and you're running your virtual machine. So I'm going to do a change per this right here, and if you can see where I am, support, there's my address there if you want to look this up yourself. But basically the Docker machine, this is instructions to delete your virtual machine and create a new one with a default disk size of 100 gigabytes. And so what I want to do is put this flag into a startup file, so it does that right from the get-go. So on this Docker Quick Start, we're going to go to Properties and look at the target, and it says C Programs Docker Toolbox Start.sh, and that's what we want to work with. So I'm going to copy that real quick and paste it right here on my desktop. Editing right in the programs file, you end up with some issues, or permission issues. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and rename that with a backup name. And then we're going to open this with Sublime Text. Alright, let's scroll down here to line 60 something. Let's just do a find command for create. There it is. So it's on line 60 where I'm at now, and so what we want to do is add that flag in from the website that I was showing you. So we'll create D virtual box, and we just want to add this flag in. Right here, space. So I'm going to just double check that and make sure that looks like what I want it to be. So create, I don't even know what the D flag is for, what the D flag is, but to disk size, and that default, you don't see it there, but it's in the variables. Okay, so I believe, and so what that's going to do is every time we start one up, it's going to automatically make the disk space at 100 gigabytes instead of like 19 or 20 gigabytes, which seems to be the default. Now, this might be an ugly hack, and there's probably an elegant solution, so if you know that elegant solution, please leave a comment, because I'd love to see it, and then as soon as I see it, I'll update the video and put it in the comments or something so we can pass that on. So alright, I'm going to save that. And we'll close. So now we have this start sh to replace what was there. And so now that's going to be our new start sh, and we still have the backup in place in case we find out we did something stupid. So that's done, and we're ready to open that up and see what happens. So it's in the process of spinning up a virtual machine in a Docker container for us. I think that's what's going on. Anyway. And while it's doing that, we'll kind of get our page back where we were. So this is, once that gets up and going, we're gonna clone WebODM. And we're just going to copy and paste this command into it. And make sure you don't get the next line. Those are all done separately. So we'll we'll copy this command to clone the WebODM program into our new Docker container. While that's doing, while that's downloading, I think I'm going to bring up the Oracle Virtual Machine user interface. So I think we can take a look at this. What we're going to do is, when that's done, we're going to stop the machine and increase our memory, not to be confused with our storage. So if we look at the storage on our disk here, we've got our 100 gigabytes that we started off with, and that's why we made that little hack. So we ended up with our size of 100 gigabytes. And the reason I did that is I kept running out of memory, or running out of disk space, or at least I think that's what was wrong. And this seemed to solve it. So keep an eye out for updates or corrections to that. And then the other thing we're going to make a change to, that we will need to shut our machine down, later on. We're going to increase the memory. So we're going to go to System, and we're going to run this memory up. So this is, I believe this is like our memory available on the machine. Let's take a quick look and see what we've got available there. So we've got 8 gigabytes on this machine, and so I'm not. This isn't going to be my primary machine. I'm doing this just to document on a machine that hasn't had it installed yet. And I may try using this as a node. So once you get it up and running, you can run multiple nodes. I'm not sure how that works, but I believe you just have multiple nodes running on a network, and they share some of the processing. So we will see how that works. But I can't change it now because the machine is running. That would be like, we've got the virtual machine, it would be like trying to change your RAM in your computer while it was turned on. So later on we'll shut it off and we'll run that up a bit. It's like, this computer doesn't have a whole lot of RAM. The primary computer I'm doing this with, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, and I've set maybe 20 gigabytes to dedicated to this. So we'll just leave that for now. Now, by the way, I think if you close this, it shuts down your machine. So once you've opened it, leave it open. I could be wrong about that, but I think if you close that, it thinks you're closing down your whole box. So we'll just leave that for now. And that's fine, because you can look at that and see kind of what's going on. Okay, it looks like our download is complete, and we're ready to proceed with the instructions on the website. And the next is we're going to cd, which means change directory, into WebODM. So here, if we type ls, it lists what's here in this directory, and we're going to go into WebODM right here. So now we're in WebODM, and now we're going to type, we're going to execute the start program. And so we do that // which means execute, and we're going to do webodm.sh is the file, and then start. So while that's downloading, let's explore this little command right here. At some point along here, it'll tell you what the IP address of your virtual machine is, and that's what you're going to access in your browser. So if you run this command right here just in your local Windows command prompt, it's just Docker machine -machine. and it's going to tell you what your IP is.
And once it's up and running, you'll get this message that says, if there are no errors, WebODM should be up and running. So we'll pull up a separate command prompt and find out our IP address. We just type in docker-machine IP, and we get 192.168.99.100. And then we're going to add colon 8000, so we're going to be on port 8000. And then I've already logged in once, but when you first log in, it gives you a login page, and to log in, it's admin with a password of admin. And so here we're ready to load a project. And in one instance, I deleted the first project, and it caused an error because it seems like it needs to look for a project, and if it doesn't find one, then it throws an error. So at this point, you just add your project and load your data. So I'm going to hit add project, and I have a rock scan I'm going to add in. So we'll name it rock scan, create project, upload images. And here's my image set that I'm going to load. I'm going to hit Control A to select them all and open. And with everything uploaded, we're ready to start processing. And so we don't need that one anymore. We'll pull up this one. And we see that we can see the activity as it begins, and we can also pull that down, and it gives us an idea what's going on as the process begins. Now this photo batch is going to be a little different than what you might end up with, because this was a 3D scan done with my cell phone, and there is no geolocational data. So I've been doing full drone scans, but I've also been experimenting with smaller 3D scanning with the cell phone with good results.
Okay, so this is what it looks like when you run out of memory. Right here where it says 54 killed, it's my understanding that we've run out of memory, or basically RAM is what we're talking about. And so I'm going to show you how to fix that, or at least increase your RAM. So we're going to go ahead and kill that. And then over here, we're going to stop our machine. We're going to power it down. This is like turning off your virtual machine. Okay, so we're powered off. So now we're going to go to System. And here we've got a slider to decide how much RAM we're going to allocate to this virtual machine. So currently we were at like 1 gigabyte. So if we can't give it all to the virtual machine, or our existing OS won't be able to run. So I'm going to go with about 5 gigabytes. Well, maybe it's a little high. We'll shoot for 4. That'll give half of our RAM to the virtual machine. I could probably type it in here. Let's try that. There we go. So we'll give it 4,000 megabytes. Okay. And then to start up our server again. So this address can't be reached because there's no server running at that location anymore. So we'll
start our Docker quick start terminal and just fire it up again. Now, just because your IP was, what it was, it might be something else when you fire it up again. It tends to, so far I've found that it tends to be, your last number tends to be 100, but I've also seen 102 and 103, especially if you run it, sequentially one after another, like what I'm doing right now. Okay, we're going to cd into our WebODM. And then // to execute our WebODM.sh file start. Okay, I'm not sure what the issue is, but when in doubt, reboot your system. And we'll try again. Okay, so we did a restart. So let's fire up Docker Quick Start and see what happens. Okay, the Docker machine is up and running. And by the way, at this point, you can see your IP address right there. In case you miss it, you can in a separate terminal type in docker -machine IP. So we have the same IP that we had before. So now I'm going to cd change directory into my WebODM directory. That tells us what directory, and we're right there. So we're going to start, we're going to // WebODM.sh. That means we're going to execute our WebODM.sh file. Start. Okay, the machine's up and running, so let's check it out and see if our IP address is active. Yep, there we are. Let's see what... So I'm pretty sure that's a lack of memory. So what we can do now is go ahead and retry the project with the additional RAM that we've allocated. With 69 images, it should work. So we're going to delete this. Or we could restart it. Let's see what happens. Alright, so we've restarted it, and so I would expect this to take an hour or 2 or 3, and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so now our project has been completed, so increasing the RAM allocation to our virtual machine solved our problem. So we're ready to download our assets that were created by this run of WebODM. So we're just going to take that zip that we downloaded and extract it. So we'll delete the original zip, and we're going to rename that to RockScan, because that's what this project was. And so this is what we have. Since this was a 3D scanning done by, I just took a bunch of pictures with my cell phone around a rock, there's not going to be any ortho photo. But what we were interested in is the mesh output, or the OBJ file. That's going to be right here, and here's all the various textures, and we're going to take a look at that with Blender. So here's Blender. We're going to delete the original cube. We're going to go File, Import, OBJ. We're going to go to that ODM texturing file. And we're going to grab that OBJ file right there. And so here we are. Here's the scan that we did. It's 90 degrees at a 90-degree angle from horizontal. So first of all, we'll go ahead and set that. We'll just go R90, and then we're going to change the right now the origin point is a fair distance from the model, so we'll go Object Transform Origin to Center of Mass. That works. And let's take a actually we should show you the texture on this. So right now it's set to Solid View. Let's move it to Material. So there's Material, and you can see we have a very little bit of light from that light source we have right there. If I had only one material on this object, I would just set it to shadeless. But since we have, a dozen materials on there, we're going to go to the World View and select Environmental Lighting. And so here you can see our 3D scan, and there's my foot even made its way into there. So at a more oblique angle, you start picking up sort of peripheral trash. So first off, we're going to go ahead and do some editing to get rid of that. So I'm going to hit 5 to go into orthographic view. What that means is that there's no shrinking with distance. Everything lines up perfectly. So we're going to hit the 7 on the number pad to look at it directly from above. We'll tab into edit mode. A to select and deselect everything. So I'm going to select this little box here, which means we select pixels or vertices that are behind each other. So I'm going to hit B to select, and so what we're going to do is go ahead and crop the whole thing. I just hit B, and every time I hit B it selects another group. And hit X to delete, and select vertices. Then we're going to tab, and let's go ahead and make it a little bit kind of square. Let's go hit B, B. That's pretty good. Let's hit 5 to go out of orthographic, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the N key. And you can also do that by hitting this little thing here. And I'm going to set the location manually at 0, 0, 0. And there is our 3D scan. I did this by standing over the rock with a cell phone about 18 inches away, and I centered the rock in every picture. And I just kind of tried to do a dome. I took one picture from the very top, and then I took a couple pictures down the side like that, and down that side, and then down each side. And so I went eight directions totally. So I did the four directions of the compass, so to speak, and then did 4 more directions diagonal to that. So, and that's what we ended up with. I'm going to hit Shift F to go into fly mode, and we can go in and get a good look at this rock. Which I think is pretty good for free open source software.
Okay, so there we have a full install on a machine that didn't have it, and then we've done a successful project on it to prove that it works. And I'll save that in that file we had. And so I put a 1 after it, and then subsequently when you go to save, if you hit save as, you can hit this increment button right here and it'll increment that 1, and that way you can save versions of your project as you process through your changes. That can help avoid frustrations, especially if you're new with Blender and you end up you've done something you don't know how to undo. Happens. Okay. Well, this video is part of a series I've been doing on open source drone map processing. So go ahead and look at all the other links in the description to see how that's done. Alright, thanks for watching. This is bleeding edge technology we're working with, so there's bound to be updates and corrections, so keep an eye on the description below and I'll try and keep those things updated as they pop up.